If you have watched my top 10 scariest stories by Junji Ito, you probably remember that I've stated in that exact video that my favorite story in Ito's catalog is Tomie. For those of you who have never heard about this manga, in Tomie we follow the story of a mysterious and beautiful woman named Tomie Kawakami, who after being killed by his own classmates mysteriously come back alive, and from there on things starts to go downhill for everyone who has met the girl or who will encounter her. Tomie's trajectory as a character can be essentially divided in two parts: denial and acceptance. But before we see how her story ends, let's talk about how everything gets started. We are introduced to Tomie as a normal teenage girl who was killed by her teacher due to the fact that she wanted to tell everyone about their relationship. After killing Tomie, he chops her body into pieces with the help of all his students, who end up spreading her remains across the countryside, and the story should have ended there. But after a few days, an alive Tomie presents herself back to class, shocking everyone who was involved in her homicide. Right after that, all her classmates either lost their minds or unalived themselves. But that was only the beginning. Throughout the story, Tomie undergoes a sad and macabre journey that changes her as a character in every volume we see her in. The story of Tomie is divided in 3 volumes: Tomie, Tomie Part 2, and Tomie Again. In each of these volumes, we get introduced to a different version of Tomie. I know it sounds a little crazy, but trust me on this one. In the first part of the Tomie series, we get to meet a version of Tomie that is trying to live a normal life and find a cure to her new condition. We see that in those chapters, this Tomie does a lot of questionable stuff, from controlling people to achieve her personal goals, to literally experiment on the daughter of the man that was willing to help her during a rainstorm. And I'm not saying that what she does is justified, but she does all of that because she was trying to find a cure to her condition. A sort of the end justified the main situation. But in Tomie Part 2, Tomie slowly starts to give up on finding a cure to her condition and decides to enjoy her life at the expense of others in a femme fatale kind of way. But Tomie is never seen as a sexual object in the story. Instead, she's more like a force of nature that most men can't resist, a force that will slowly drain them and bring them to insanity. The unlucky men that get in contact with Tomie end up losing all sight of sanity over her, and the more Tomie they get, the crazier they become. And with that, most of the time our main character ends up getting killed by the very man that adores her. But her death is never permanent due to her incredible regeneration abilities. We are never really told how Tomie got her powers, or neither what exactly she is. Some people believe that she has succubus-like abilities, like attracting men and draining them from their vital force. Some others say that she's more like a yokai, but unfortunately, this is something that we will never know. For the majority of the time while I was reading the story, I couldn't help but feel sorry for Tomie, because for most of the time, she's as much as a victim as the men that she interacts with. Yes, she's rude and ungrateful, and she likes to torment people around her like a bully, but we need to remember that she's a teenager, and most teenagers act in that way if they're not taught any better, which I believe was the case with Tomie. Unfortunately, her powers don't make things easier for her, driving men to kill her for every reason possible, and at some point, she just gets used to it. She meets someone who puts her in a pedestal, she uses them, and then she ends up getting killed by them, just so that she can regenerate and do everything the same way again and again and again. But we see that at some point, something breaks in her, and that's where I believe she turns into the villain in her own story. In Tomie Again, we see a Tomie that has become definitely more evil compared to the previous 2 volumes. This time, Her goal is to make the lives of everyone who meets her miserable. Examples of these are seen in the stories Littlefinger, Babysitter, and the one that everyone likes to talk about, Boy, in which she turns a normal kid into a murderer that sees her as his mommy, just to literally abandon him after she got bored of playing with him. Personally, I believe that the best stories involving Tomie are the ones presented in this volume, with the exclusion of Painter and Orphan Girl, that are a part of volume 2. Tomie is such an interesting yet tragic tale. It can be interpreted as a simple horror story, or a possible metaphor on how women are sexualized and treated by men in modern society. Either way, however you decide to interpret this story, Tomie is definitely a must-read from the Junji Ito's catalog. She's a character that is more complex than it looks, thanks to what she's been through throughout the whole series, and at the end, she's stuck in this macabre cycle of death, rebirth, and evil that will probably go on forever. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. A big thanks to RGNB, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, for reminding me about doing this little breakdown on Tomie. This is probably not going to be the last time I talk about this story, since we're getting a new anime adaptation next year, so stay tuned for more videos about Tomie. By the way, if you have any suggestions for more videos like this one, let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Bye.